I was 18 the night my mother split my MIT acceptance letter in two. "This is not who we are," she said. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I taped the pages back together on the bathroom floor. At 5 o'clock, I left home. I did not return for 7 years. But what I brought back with me to my grandmother's 80th birthday party, in front of 30 relatives, is the part my mother still refuses to talk about. My name is Teresa Davis, and in my family, tradition was simple. The eldest daughter did not leave for college. My grandmother followed that rule. My mother followed it. My aunt followed it. I was the first one who didn't. And this is what happened the day I finally came home. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. This channel is for women who grew up keeping everyone else steady, women who learned how to leave without making a scene, women who know that sometimes the strongest answer is not yelling back, but quietly walking out of the room. If you have ever had to piece something back together after someone you loved tried to take it away from you, leave a comment below, and make sure you subscribe. I grew up in a brick row house on Mahanango Street in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. 2 bedrooms upstairs, a kitchen in the back, a grandmother in the front room who watched television with the volume turned all the way down. My father worked at Lawless Tool, just 6 minutes away by car. My mother stayed home. My younger sister Maddie was 13. I was 18. In our house, tradition had a shape. It looked like my grandmother's wooden recipe box sitting on the kitchen counter. Oak wood, the name Davis carved into the lid. Inside were 3 generations of index cards. Lasagna, pierogies, krupnik, applesauce cake. And somewhere between all those recipes was the rule no one ever had to write down. The eldest daughter stays. The eldest daughter cooks. The eldest daughter marries someone close enough to visit on a Sunday afternoon. My grandmother had done it. My mother had done it. My Aunt Carol had done it. I was supposed to be next. I never said no out loud. That was not how women in my family did things. I said no quietly, privately, in places where no one thought to look. For me, that place was the school library on Garfield Avenue. 2nd floor, west window, the table tucked behind the encyclopedias. I took the SAT in October. I took the ACT in November. I lied about where I went on Saturday mornings. My mother believed I was working a shift at Patel Family Bakery for $10 in cash, and most Saturdays, I was. But one Saturday each month, I was on a bus to Philadelphia taking a test no one in my house knew about. I scored 1,560 on the SAT. I scored 35 on the ACT. I told no one. Then I sent in 7 college applications. One of them was to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. The other 6 were safety schools I still could not afford. The big envelope arrived on a Thursday in March. I almost did not get to it in time. Our mailbox had one of those little red flags that no one ever used. I walked home from school at 3:18, just like I always did, and I saw the corner of the envelope sticking out before I even reached the porch. MIT was printed in red letters across the upper left corner. The envelope was thick. Every senior in America knew what that meant. Thin meant no. Thick meant yes. I slipped it under my coat, went straight upstairs, locked the bathroom door behind me, and sat on the edge of the tub. The letter was 3 pages. The first line said, "Congratulations." The second said, "Full need-based scholarship." The third said, "Housing and meal plan included." I read the first sentence 11 times. Then I cried without making a sound. I sat there for 14 minutes. I know because I checked my watch afterward. I had made a plan. The plan had been to apply in secret, just to prove to myself that I could. The plan had been to say no if an acceptance ever came. The plan had been to tuck that no away with my test scores and carry the private knowledge that I had been good enough. But the plan had not included a full scholarship. I read the letter a 12th time. Then I folded it into thirds, slipped it under the bath mat, went downstairs, and ate dinner like nothing had happened. My mother asked if I wanted seconds. "No, thank you," I said. She told me I looked pale. I said I had a headache. I had 36 hours before the second envelope arrived, the one with the housing forms and the parent affidavit. My mother opened the mail every weekday at 4. That gave me one Friday afternoon to figure out what I was going to do. But I did not move fast enough. On Friday at 5:12, my mother was folding laundry on the dining room table, white towels in one stack, dish rags in another. My father's work coveralls in a third. I came in through the back door after school, already planning to retrieve the letter from under the bath mat later that night after everyone was asleep. I was going to slide it inside the cover of my chemistry textbook, but the letter was already on the table, right next to the dish rags. My mother did not look up. She just kept folding. Bathroom trash is not private, Teresa. But I had not thrown the letter away. She had found it. She had read it, and then she had placed it on the table like she had been waiting for me to come home and see it there. I was going to tell you, I said. Tell me what? She still did not look up. That you applied behind my back. That you took 2 tests we never agreed to. That you used my address for college mail. I opened my mouth to explain. Full scholarship. No debt. Tuition covered. Housing and meals included. I had the whole argument prepared in my head. Every number. Every detail. Every reason it made sense. Then my mother picked up the letter. For the first time, she looked directly at me. And slowly, deliberately, she split it down the middle. All 3 pages at once. Then she turned the halves and split them again. The pieces landed on the dining room table. 4 cream-colored rectangles with the red MIT logo divided cleanly between them. This is not who we are, she said. My grandmother, sitting in the front room, did not turn away from the television. My sister Maddie was on the bottom stair, holding the banister with both hands. My father was in the garage, 2 rooms away, and did not hear a word. The whole thing lasted maybe 7 seconds. My mother did not shout. She did not raise her voice. That was the part I had not prepared for. I had prepared for anger. Instead, I got calm. By 7:30 that evening, my Aunt Carol was sitting at our kitchen table. She lived 8 blocks away. My mother had called her at 5:18, exactly 6 minutes after the letter came apart, the phone still warm in her hand. My grandmother had moved her armchair into the dining room. My father had gone back to the garage with a sandwich. Maddie was upstairs. She was not invited. The 4 pieces of the letter were still on the table. No one had moved them. They had become the centerpiece. The applesauce cake my mother baked on Wednesday sat beside them, untouched. My grandmother spoke first. The eldest daughter stays, always has. Aunt Carol nodded. I stayed, Linda stayed, Teresa stays. That is how it works. I said, MIT offered me a full ride. My grandmother adjusted her glasses. Then they wasted a letter. I said it again, slower this time. Tuition covered, room and board included, engineering, a future I could actually build. I laid it out exactly the way I had practiced it 100 times in the library. My mother said, your sister is 13. She needs you here. I said, Maddie will be fine. Aunt Carol leaned back in her chair. Your aunt had her chance once. So did your mother. I missed the second half of that sentence. I heard chance and aunt, and my mind stopped there. I should have heard, so did your mother, but I didn't. My grandmother repeated herself. She liked repeating things. The eldest daughter stays. No one asked me what I wanted. No one asked what MIT had offered. No one asked what my SAT score was. They had already decided. They had decided the night I was born. They had decided before that, when my grandmother was born. The conversation in the dining room was not really a conversation. It was a decision being read out loud. I stopped arguing at 8:15. I went upstairs at 10 o'clock. I did not sleep. I waited. At midnight, my mother went to bed. At 12:30, my father came in from the garage, and the floorboards creaked as he passed my door. At 1:15, the house was quiet enough for me to hear the refrigerator humming from the kitchen. I went downstairs at 1:40. The 4 pieces of the letter were still on the dining room table. My mother had not thrown them away. She had left them there as a lesson. I gathered them carefully and carried them upstairs to the bathroom. Then I locked the door, sat on the tile floor with my back against the tub, and opened the medicine cabinet. There was a roll of Scotch tape inside. My mother kept it there for labels and small household fixes. I pulled the tape slowly, 1 strip at a time. Then I lined up the edges of the letter and taped each seam like a stitch. My mother had taught me how to mend things. She had just never told me which things were allowed to be mended. Hems, yes. Buttons, yes. A letter from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, no. The sentence about the scholarship ran across 2 strips of tape, but I could still read every word. I folded the letter into thirds and slipped it into the inside chest pocket of my denim jacket, the pocket with the button. Then I went back to my room and opened the bottom drawer of my dresser. Inside was $340 in cash, money I had saved from babysitting the Patel kids next door over the last 2 years. Beside it was a printed Greyhound schedule I had downloaded at the library and folded into eighths back in October. Boston route, 5:22 a.m. departure from Pottsville. I wrote a note for Maddie, half a page. I told her I loved her. I told her I would write. I told her not to be afraid. At 3:40, I slipped it under her pillow while she slept with her mouth slightly open. Then I went down the stairs in socks. The garage light was on. I had expected it to be dark. My father was standing at his workbench. His sleeves were rolled up. His hands were greasy. The carburetor from the 1992 Buick sat open on a clean rag. The car did not run, and he was not really fixing it. He was pretending to. He had been waiting. I stood in the doorway with my coat on and my duffel bag at my feet. He turned around. He looked at me the way he looked at customers who came into the tool shop with a problem they could not quite explain. Then he nodded once. "Your mother loves you, Teresa." "I know." He wiped his hands on the rag. Then he reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. He counted 4 $20 bills and held them out to me. I took them. $80. He had $80 in his wallet on a Friday after payday, and somewhere between dinner and 1:40 in the morning, he had decided to give all of it to me. "For the bus," he said. I placed the bills inside my jacket, right on top of the letter. He did not ask where I was going. He did not need me to tell him. He had heard my mother on the phone with Carol. He had heard enough through the walls. He had been awake the same way I had been awake. I did not say thank you. I did not say goodbye. He did not reach for me. I did not reach for him. He turned back to the carburetor. I picked up my duffel bag and walked out through the side door of the garage into the alley. It was 4:11 a.m. The temperature was 31 degrees. I could see my breath in the air. The taped letter rested against my collarbone, folded into thirds. The $80 sat on top of it. The Greyhound station in Pottsville was a glass and cinder block waiting room attached to a Sunoco gas pump, 1.4 miles from my house. I walked there in 24 minutes. My duffel bag was a navy nylon Eastpak with one broken strap. Inside were 3 changes of clothes, a paper bag containing The Catcher in the Rye, my SAT prep book, my high school transcript folded twice, my driver's license, a spare pair of glasses, and a Ziploc bag with my toothbrush in it. That was every item I owned that mattered. I bought my ticket at the window from a man named Earl. Boston Greyhound. $89. The bus left at 5:22 a.m. and arrived at South Station at 6:54 p.m., 13 hours and 32 minutes. I paid with 3 20s, 110, 15, and 4 1s. I had $251 left. I boarded at 5:14 and took a window seat behind the driver. The seat beside me stayed empty. At 5:22 exactly, the bus pulled away. I watched our street pass by 3 blocks east of the station. Our house, the kitchen light on, the upstairs dark. My mother's silhouette stood behind the kitchen window with a coffee cup in her hand. I am almost sure she was watching the bus leave. I did not wave. She did not see me. At 5:30, Maddie's bedroom light came on. She had found the note. The light stayed on for 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Then it went out. I do not know what she did between the first minute and the second. I have wondered about it for 7 years. I took the taped letter out of my jacket and read the scholarship sentence one more time. Then I folded it carefully, placed it back against my chest, and fell asleep against the window. $340 from babysitting, $80 from my father, 1 taped acceptance letter, and 13 hours between the girl I had been and the woman I was about to become. $80 from my father, 1 taped letter. It was enough. South Station at 6:54 p.m. smelled like diesel, cold concrete, and pretzel salt. I walked from South Station to MIT Student Services with my duffel bag on my back. 5 miles. I had paper directions I printed at the Pottsville Library 2 weeks earlier. The pages were folded so many times the corners had gone soft. By the time I reached the Office of First-Generation Student Programs, it was 9:30 on a Friday night in March. The office was closed. So I sat on the floor outside the door, opened my SAT prep book, and pretended to study so the security guard would think I belonged there. At 10:15, he asked me to move along. That night I slept in a study lounge in the basement of the student center, on a vinyl couch the color of wet sand, with my duffel bag as a pillow. I slept 4 hours. On Monday morning at 8, a woman named Dr. Marina Ortiz opened her office door, saw me sitting on the bench outside, and said, "You're early." "I came early," I said. "How early?" 3 days. I had not eaten a real meal since the bus station in Hartford, where I had bought a hot dog. Dr. Ortiz looked at me once and did not ask another question. She walked me down the hall to the cafeteria and used her faculty meal pass to buy me eggs, toast, and orange juice. Then she sat across from me and watched me eat. She did not speak until I was finished. After that, she said, "Tell me what you have." I had the taped letter. I had $316 left. I had a duffel bag with a broken strap. I did not have a signed parent affidavit. I did not have proof of income, because my parents were not going to provide it. Dr. Ortiz studied the taped letter for a long time. She turned it over, then she turned it back. Finally, she said, "Keep that." I started to slide it back into my jacket. She stopped me. "No, frame it. Frame it cheap if you have to, but keep it somewhere you can see it." That was my first week at MIT. The first year passed the way years pass when you are trying to survive and build a future at the same time. I took 18 credit hours each semester, plus a summer session. I worked 20 hours a week in the materials science lab and another 12 hours in the dining hall. At the end of freshman year, my grade point average was 3.76. By sophomore year, it was 3.89. I emailed my mother twice. The first email was during my second week of school. I sent her my new address and the dorm phone number. The second email was after fall finals. It was only one short paragraph. It ended with, "I miss you." She never replied. So I stopped writing. Then, in October of sophomore year, at 11 at night, I checked my MIT email before bed. There was a message from Madison_1994 @Yahoo. I did not recognize the address. I almost deleted it. Then I read the subject line, "Mom." The message was only 3 sentences. "She told the church you're gone. The priest asked about you at coffee hour." Aunt Carol backed her up. "People believe it." It was signed Maddie. I read the email 3 times. Then I closed the laptop, walked into the kitchen of the apartment I shared with 2 other scholarship students, and drank a glass of water. Then I came back and read it a 4th time. My mother had not just avoided mentioning me. She had rewritten me. She had told the parishioners of St. John the Baptist on Howard Avenue in Pottsville that I was no longer here. My Aunt Carol, my mother's sister, had confirmed the story. Father Hennessy had asked about me during coffee hour after the 11 a.m. service, and my family had chosen the easier version. The daughter who was gone was easier to explain than the daughter who had left. A quiet tragedy earned sympathy. A living daughter with a scholarship asked too many questions. My mother chose the story. So did my aunt. And now the whole town would treat her gently, the way people treat someone carrying a recent sorrow. I did not reply to Maddie. I did not know what to say to a 13-year-old girl who had just sent me the truth in 3 lines. I closed the laptop. I went to bed at 11:40. I did not fall asleep until 2:20. In March of junior year, the payphone in the lobby of the MIT Student Center rang for me on a Tuesday afternoon. It was the one outside the post office. I was walking past it on my way to a problem set group when the desk attendant waved me over. "Teresa Davis," she said, "there's a man on the line who says he's your father." I had not heard his voice in 2 years and 4 months. I picked up the receiver. "Teresa." "Dad?" "Grandma had a medical scare. Mild. She's home now. She's asking for you." I stood there with the receiver pressed to my left ear and watched a freshman drop a textbook on the floor. "When did it happen?" I asked. 3 weeks ago." I let the silence sit between us. He sat in it too. He had called me on a payphone on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after it happened, with no email first, no warning, and almost certainly with my mother somewhere close by. "She had 3 weeks of asking," I said, "and you waited until now to call?" He did not answer. I said, "Tell her I'm in finals. I'm sorry." Then I hung up. Finals were not for another 6 weeks. I knew it. He knew it. The lie was a gift to both of us. It let me hang up without saying no. It let him go home and say I was busy studying. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment and worked through the logic the way I worked through problem sets. Grandma had a medical scare. Grandma was home. Grandma was asking for me. But Grandma had not wanted me to leave in the first place. She had wanted me to stay, just like every eldest daughter before me. That had not changed. My father had been told to call. So he called, and I had answered with a small lie that gave everyone a way out. I waited for the guilt to come. It did not. I noticed that with surprise. I did not feel guilty. I went to bed at 10:30 and slept 8 hours for the first time in 3 months. If you have ever had your father call you carrying someone else's pressure, your mother's, your grandmother's, your aunt's, and you knew before you even picked up that the call was not really from him, I would like to know what you said. Drop it in the comments. And if you are new to Calm Drama Stories, make sure you subscribe. Sunday's story is about a woman who picked up the phone, listened quietly, and then decided she would never answer that number again. By December of senior year, I had moved off campus into a studio apartment above a sandwich shop on Massachusetts Avenue, 3 subway stops from the lab. The rent was $840 a month. My stipend covered $700. The lab covered the rest in exchange for 15 hours a week as a research assistant. I had a bookshelf, a futon, a small desk under the window, a kettle, a wok, and a roommate named Maya, who was 3 years into her doctorate in chemical engineering. Maya was from Lagos, Nigeria. She had left her family at 19 for reasons close enough to mine that neither of us needed to explain too much, so we did not talk about it. The frame cost $14 at the CVS on Massachusetts Avenue. Black plastic, 8 by 10. I had carried the taped letter folded inside the cover of my sophomore year organic chemistry textbook for 2.5 years. The folds had gone soft. The tape had started to brown. I had never added more. The seams had not come loose. The letter held. The night I bought the frame, I unfolded the letter on the kitchen counter and smoothed the creases as flat as I could with the back of a spoon. Then I slid it behind the glass and tightened the 4 metal tabs. I hung it on a nail above my desk. Maya came home at midnight. She made herself a cup of tea, walked over to the desk, and looked at the frame for 30 seconds. "Why is it taped?" she asked. "My mother tried to throw it away once." "Once?" "Once." Maya nodded. Then she went to her room. That was all I said about it for the next 18 months. I did not need to say more. The letter was on the wall. The tape was slowly turning brown. Anyone who came into my apartment and asked got the same 2-word answer. Anyone who did not ask did not need to know. It was not just a letter anymore. It was proof. Proof that something can be torn, carried, hidden, protected, and still arrive where it was meant to go. It was a calendar I never had to mark. Every day I sat at that desk, I looked up, and every time I looked up I remembered that I had taped it back together. I crossed the stage at Killian Court on a Friday in May. The weather was 68 degrees, partly cloudy with no rain. The ceremony began at 10 a.m. My section, mechanical engineering, walked at 11:42. My name was the 43rd called out of 212 students in my section. 3 months earlier, I had sent 4 invitations to Pottsville, 1 to my mother, 1 to my father, 1 to my grandmother, and 1 to Aunt Carol. My mother's came back stamped return to sender, but the envelope had been opened, the contents had been read. Then it had been resealed with a different kind of tape than the one she used years earlier to fix my 8th grade chemistry homework. She had taken the time to send it back. She had not taken the time to write a single word. My father's invitation was opened, too. No reply. I learned later from Maddie that he had read it on the porch, folded it carefully, and slipped it into the pocket of his coveralls. My grandmother's invitation became a coaster for her morning coffee. Maddie sent me a photograph 6 months later. The water ring sat perfectly on the cardboard backing, like the mug had been placed there on purpose. Aunt Carol's invitation was thrown away, unopened. Still, I had reserved 4 seats in the family section, rows G through J right on the aisle. At 11:32, when the ceremony started, 3 of those seats were empty. I had hoped, in the quiet way people hope for things they already know will not happen, that at least one of them would be filled. Dr. Ortiz came. She sat in the first seat. She wore a navy blazer, and when I crossed the stage, she clapped for me. She was the only person in row G who clapped for a single graduate by name. My faculty advisor, Dr. Sunita Reddy, sat in the second seat. Maya sat in the third. The fourth seat stayed empty. After the ceremony, the three of them took me out for Indian food at Diva on Hampshire Street. Dr. Ortiz ordered the lassi. No one talked about who had not come. Instead, we talked about my doctorate starting in the fall, in the same lab as Dr. Reddy. At the end of the day, I scanned the crowd one last time. I did not find my mother. The package arrived on a Tuesday in July. It was my first month as a doctoral student, 2 months after graduation. The box was brown cardboard, 12 by 10 by 8, the kind you buy at a UPS store. The shipping label was handwritten in pencil. The postmark said Pottsville. The return address line was blank. I opened it at the kitchen counter at 6:15 p.m. with a steak knife. Inside the cardboard box was Grandma Margaret's wooden recipe box, the same one, oak wood. Davis carved across the lid. The varnish was darker than I remembered. The hinge was stiffer. I lifted the lid. The index cards were still there. Lasagna with mozzarella, pierogies, kupnik, applesauce cake, Frank's chili, hot milk sponge cake, Polish white borscht. 53 cards in my grandmother's handwriting. 4 in my mother's. Under the cards was a cardboard insert. I lifted it out. Beneath it, lying flat against the bottom of the box, was a yellowed manila envelope. I sat down on the floor. Inside the envelope were 3 things. The first was a high school transcript from Pottsville Area High School, class of 1991. The name on the transcript was Linda Marie Walsh. Linda, my mother. Her grade point average was 3.94, National Honor Society, senior class secretary, top 5%. The second item was an acceptance letter from Lehigh Carbon Community College, registered nurse program, fall semester 1991, partial scholarship, $1,200 per semester, total cost after scholarship, $1,780 per semester. The letter was dated April 3, 1991. The third item was the same acceptance letter, in 2 pieces, taped back together with brittle yellowed masking tape. The tape had cracked along the center line. The 2 pieces were still attached, but barely. Sometime in the last decade, the tape had started to give up. My mother had taped her own scholarship letter back together in 1991, and then she had kept it for 33 years. The roll of Scotch tape in our bathroom medicine cabinet, the one I had used at 1:40 in the morning 7 years earlier, had been her roll. She had taught me how to fix what was pulled apart. She had just never told me what she had fixed first. I sat with those 3 pieces of paper on my kitchen counter for 2 hours. I did not cry. I do not remember thinking much of anything. I remember the kettle was on. I forgot about it. Maya came home around 8 and turned it off. She looked at the papers. She did not ask. She made tea for both of us and sat across from me. I worked through the math. My mother had been 18 in 1991. She had almost the same grade point average I had. She had been senior class secretary. She had applied to community college on her own. Someone had split her letter in 2, almost certainly my grandmother. The same grandmother who had sat in the front room with the television volume low while my own letter sat on the dining room table. My mother had taped her letter back together with masking tape because that was what was available in the Davis kitchen in 1991. Then she had hidden it at the bottom of the wooden recipe box, a box she would one day inherit, a box filled with recipes for staying, and under all of them one quiet piece of evidence that she had once tried to leave. She stayed. She married my father in October of 1992. She had me in May of 2002. Then she spent 25 years cooking from the cards above that letter, and when my turn came, she split mine too. I understood the math, but I did not forgive it. Understanding and forgiveness are not the same thing. Understanding said she was also someone's eldest daughter. Not forgiving said she had once held the tape in her own hands and still chose to repeat the pattern. At the bottom of the manila envelope was a photograph, 4 by 6, color, faded a little. It was my mother at 18, standing on the porch of a building in Schnecksville, Pennsylvania. She was wearing nursing scrubs that did not belong to her yet. In her hands was a Lehigh Carbon Community College brochure, and she was smiling. I had never seen her smile like that. I have looked through every family album we had. She appears in maybe 40 photographs. In none of them does she smile the way she smiles in that Lehigh carbon photograph. I sat with the math of it. 33 years between her tape and mine. The same kind of silence, the same kind of rule, almost the same brand of tape. During my second year of doctoral work, our lab spun out a company. We called it SenScore. We built mass spectrometry sensors for hospital clinical labs. Our work helped identify serious bloodstream conditions faster than the standard culture method, 16 hours instead of 24 to 72. The patent was filed in January. The university spin-out paperwork was signed in March. Dr. Reddy became the chief scientific officer. 5 graduate students were named on the patent. I was one of them. My founder equity grant was 2.4% of the company, vesting over 4 years with a 1-year cliff. That cliff vested on a Tuesday in March, during my 6th year at MIT. 11 months later, SenScore closed its Series A funding at a pre-money valuation of $31 million. On paper, my vested shares were worth a little over $750,000. The unvested portion was worth nearly the same. I told no one in Pottsville. The night the cliff vested, I wrote one email to Maddie at her old Yahoo address. The subject line was simple. Hi. The body was even simpler. Are you okay? Hope you are. I had not emailed her in 5 years. Maddie replied at 4 o'clock in the morning that same day. She must have had email notifications turned on, with the sound loud enough to wake her. Her reply said, Haley just turned 5. She's smart. T-smart. Like you smart. I had not known how old Maddie's oldest child was. I had not known her name. I learned both in one sentence. I read the email twice. Then I went to bed at 2:30. 2 days later, Maddie sent a follow-up. It was a photo of a 5-year-old girl in pink corduroy sitting beside a magnetile castle. I saved it to a folder on my desktop labeled M. Over the next 8 months, I added every picture Maddie sent. By the end of the year, there were 16. I did not reply to most of them. Once or twice, I sent a single emoji. I still did not know what I was going to do with the math of $750,000 on paper, but I knew I had time. I knew Haley was 5. I knew the next eldest daughter conversation in our family was still about 12 years away, or at least that was what I thought. The second call from my father came 2 years and 3 months after the first one. It was October. I was in the lab at 6:20 p.m., running a calibration on a new detector. My phone vibrated on the bench. Unknown number, Pennsylvania area code. I answered because I had stopped expecting to recognize any number from back home. Teresa, Dad, Grandma's 80th is in 6 weeks. They want you there. Who wants me there? He paused. Your mother. I sat down on the lab stool. Then he said, Your mother has been telling people you didn't make it at MIT, that you left, that you never finished. I stayed quiet. At church, he said. At Carol's, around town. That's the story now. The detector hummed beside me. Why are you calling, Dad? Another pause. Then he said, Because they're starting on Haley. I closed the laptop on the calibration. What do you mean, starting? The talk's about staying. Carol started it at Easter. Linda just nods along. Maddie isn't saying no. He took a breath. They're laying it out for her now, so by the time she's 12, she'll think it was her idea. She's 5. I know. She is 5. I know. I picked up a pen from the bench and wrote on the back of my hand. 6 weeks. Haley. Birthday. How do you know they're starting now? I asked. Carol bought her a play kitchen. I stared at the pen marks on my hand. Then I said, Thank you for telling me. He said, Teresa, I should have called sooner. Yes. Then I hung up. I walked out of the lab. I did not finish the calibration. I did not sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and made a list the way I made lists in the lab. Numbered, columned, clear enough to test. Item 1. What do I want to say? Answer. Nothing. Actions only. Item 2. What do I want to leave behind? Answer. The taped letter. The 1991 photograph. A document. Item 3. Who is the audience? Answer. Haley. Only Haley. Everyone else is witness scaffolding. Item 4. When? Answer. Grandma's 80th birthday. Saturday in November. 6 weeks away. Around 30 witnesses, including church friends. Public enough that the conversation cannot be denied later. Item 5. What will I not do? Answer. Argue. raise my voice, justify myself, apologize for arriving late. Item 6. What will I do if my mother tries to stop me at the door? Answer. Stand on the porch and speak through the screen. Haley will still hear me. Item 7. Funding. Answer. A trust. Money placed in a registered account before the trip, so the document I put on the table will be real, not a promise, a fact. At the bottom of the page, I wrote one final line. This is not payback. This is a controlled demonstration. Inputs, outputs, controls. I went to bed at 5:20 a.m. I slept for 2 hours. At 7:30, I woke up and called the lawyer Maya's brother had once used for a stock purchase agreement. Her name was Sarah Klein. Sarah had an office on Boylston Street in the Back Bay. She charged $380 an hour. I went to see her that Thursday at 4:15 p.m. I brought a notebook. I told her exactly what I wanted. A trust funded by converted equity. $250,000. Beneficiaries. Any female or male descendant of Margaret Davis, age 17 or older, accepted into any accredited college, university, or trade school in the United States or Canada. 2-year program, 4-year program, certificate program. It did not matter. Haley, my niece, would be the first eligible when she turned 17. Her brother Cody would be eligible too. Sarah looked up from her notes. You want the boys included? Yes. The title says daughters. The tradition was gendered, I said. The trust is not. That is the point. She nodded and wrote that down. Sarah drafted the document over the next 8 days. We met twice more. The corpus was wired from my Senscore share liquidation on a Monday. The trust was signed and notarized 11 days after our first meeting. Sarah was the trustee. I was the grantor. The instrument was named the Davis Daughters Education Trust, with a footnote clarifying that it covered all descendants. I kept the word daughters in the title on purpose. Sarah handed me the signed document in a cream-colored envelope with her firm's letterhead on the front. She asked me twice if I wanted to add a personal note for the family. I said no both times. The second time, she accepted the answer and did not ask again. $250,000, notarized in 11 days. A document no one could fold into a drawer. A number no one could pretend was only a dream. And this time, there would be nothing for my mother to tear. I said no. If you have ever put money behind a younger version of yourself, a niece, a cousin, a child down the street, and you did it without asking for credit, I want to hear about it. Tell me in the comments what you set up and why. And if you are enjoying this story, make sure you subscribe. There is a story coming Sunday about a woman who paid for a stranger's tuition and never told her own family. The Friday before the party, I packed. The briefcase was brown leather, a saddleback bag Maya had insisted on buying me as a graduation gift for my bachelor's degree. I had used it twice. It was small, 12 inches by 15, 2 compartments, 1 flap, 1 brass buckle. Inside, from bottom to top, I placed everything in order. The trust document in its cream-colored envelope, my Ph.D. candidate status letter from the MIT Department of Mechanical Engineering, printed on letterhead and signed by Dr. Reddy as my advisor, my Bachelor of Science diploma in its 5x7 folio. The photograph of my mother at 18 holding the Lehigh Carbon Community College brochure slipped carefully between the pages of the diploma folio so it would not bend, and on top of everything, the taped MIT letter. I had removed it from the frame. I folded it along the original thirds and placed it on top of the diploma. That was the briefcase. On Saturday morning at 5, I dressed for the trip. Dark navy slacks, a white button-down shirt, plain collar, no embellishment, black flats, hair down, no makeup, no jewelry, no wedding ring, because I have never had one, no earrings, because I do not own any. The only thing on me that shined was the brass buckle of the briefcase. I dressed like the engineer I was. No costume, no statement. The briefcase would do the talking. I flew from Logan to Philadelphia. At the airport, I rented a charcoal-colored Honda CR-V and drove west on Interstate 76. I stopped once for coffee. Pottsville on a Saturday morning in November looked the way it had always looked. Brick row houses on Mahanango Street, the Dollar General on Center Street, 2 empty storefronts where there had once been a bakery and a hardware store. The bakery had been Patel Family Bakery. The Patels had moved to Schuylkill Haven 6 years earlier, after the bakery closed. I drove past my old high school. The marquee read, "Go Tide." The football team was still the Crimson Tide. Some things did not change. I drove past the Greyhound station. The cinder-block waiting room was still there. The Sunoco pump beside it had been replaced with a touchscreen model. Earl was probably no longer behind the ticket window. He had been 62 when I bought my ticket. He would have been 69 now. I drove past the Goodwill on Center Street. In the window display, there was a kitchen apron, green and yellow print, folded over a hanger. It looked like the aprons my mother wore every Saturday morning when I was a child. Same length, same hem, different print. The Goodwill rotated stock every week. That apron in the window was not my mother's. It was someone's. Someone like my mother. I did not stop. I did not slow down. I drove past at the speed limit. At 10:14 a.m., I turned onto Mahanango Street. I parked the Honda at the curb across from the Davis house. The mailbox had been repainted blue. I sat in the rental car and counted to 100. Then, at 10:42, I walked up the 4-porch steps. I knocked twice with the back of my middle knuckle the way my father used to knock when he came in from the garage. My mother opened the door 3/4 of the way. She was wearing an apron. Same brand as the one in the Goodwill window. Different print. Her hair was almost half gray. She had not lost weight. She had not gained weight. Her face looked the same and not the same, the way a face looks after 7 years of not seeing it. She did not say, "Come in." She did not say, "Teresa." She did not say, "Hello." She said, "You're early by 18 minutes. The party starts at noon. Stay in the car." Then she closed the door. In the narrow gap before it shut, I saw the kitchen counter behind her. The recipe box was sitting there, Davis carved across the lid. It looked exactly as it always had, in the exact same place. I had returned the box the previous summer. I had mailed it back with a note written in Maya's mother's handwriting that said, "Found this at Sabina's apartment. Thought you would want it back." It had worked. The box was home. My mother had no idea I had ever held it. I walked back to the Honda CR-V, sat in the driver's seat, and turned the heat to 68. Then I waited. It was 10:43 a.m. The party started at noon. 18 minutes was 18 minutes. Cars started arriving at 11:15. From the Honda, I had a clear view. Aunt Carol and her husband Donnie pulled up in a cream-colored Buick LeSabre. Carol got out first. She looked older than I remembered, with gray hair set into a stiff perm. She glanced at the rental car across the street and pretended she had not. Maddie arrived next at 11:22 in a green Subaru Outback. Maddie was a woman now, 23. She lifted Cody, her 2-year-old, out of the back seat and settled him on her hip with the practiced efficiency of someone who had not had a free hand in 3 years. Tim, her husband, lifted Haley out from the other side. Haley wore a pink dress, white tights, and a small navy cardigan. In her left hand, she held a plastic bay horse. Her hair was the same blonde mine had been at 5. Then came the cousins. 3 from my father's side, 2 from my mother's, the Walsh cousins, and 2 of my grandmother's church friends, Mrs. Hardesty and Mrs. Vargas, arriving in a Cadillac driven by Mrs. Hardesty's grandson. At 11:53, Maddie crossed the street. She had taken off her coat. She walked straight up to the driver's window. I rolled it down. She said, "I sent you the box." "I know. It took me 5 years to find it. She had it in the attic." "Thank you." Maddie looked toward the house, then back at me. "Are you going to make a scene?" "No," I said. "I'm going to make an option." She looked at me for 2 seconds. Then she nodded once and walked back across the street. I walked into the house at 12:08 p.m. The living room had 30 people in it. Folding chairs lined the walls. Plastic tablecloths covered the tables. There was a cake on the dining room table, white with yellow piping. It read, "Happy 80th." A second cake sat on the counter. Smaller, lemon. The recipe box was still on the kitchen counter. Conversation paused when the door opened. Then it stopped completely. My mother stood in the kitchen archway and said one word. She came. My grandmother sat in the same green corduroy armchair she had been sitting in 7 years earlier. She looked up over her reading glasses. The glasses were new. The frames were the same. "Teresa," she said, "you look thin." "Hi, Grandma." Aunt Carol spoke from the dining table. "Took you long enough." "I'm sorry I missed Christmases," I said. Carol opened her mouth, but my father crossed the room from the kitchen before she could speak. He had aged 7 years. He hugged me. 2 seconds. Then he let go. He said nothing. He went back to the kitchen. I stood in the entryway with the briefcase in my right hand. Haley was on the carpet in front of the television, about 10 feet away from me, playing with the plastic bay horse. Cody was on Maddie's lap. Tim was talking to Donnie. The room remembered how to talk after about 15 seconds. The volume slowly came back. Mrs. Hardesty asked Mrs. Vargas if she wanted coffee. I sat down on the folding chair nearest the front window. The briefcase rested beside my feet. Closed. Waiting. I placed the briefcase on the carpet beside my left foot. At 12:31, my mother picked up a butter knife and tapped it lightly against the rim of a water glass. The room settled into a hush. My father stepped into the kitchen doorway with a coffee cup in his hand. Maddie set Cody down on the carpet beside Haley. My grandmother stood. Her cane took her weight on the left side. Her right hand held the back of the armchair. "Thank you all for coming," she said. 80 years. Mrs. Vargas gave a gentle laugh. Donnie clapped once. My grandmother continued, "I want to say something about our family." She looked down at Haley, who was rolling the bay horse along the edge of the coffee table. "Davis women stay close," she said. "We do not chase. We do not drift. We do not forget our place." My mother stood very still. My Linda stayed. My Carol stayed. My Maddie stayed. Then my grandmother paused. She looked at Haley again. "And one day soon my Haley will stay too." She lifted her water glass. "To staying." 28 glasses went up. 28 voices answered. "To staying." Aunt Carol's voice was the loudest. My father lifted his coffee cup halfway, then stopped at his chest. He did not say the words. 2 glasses did not go up. Mine did not. I sat with my hands folded in my lap. My water glass was on the side table by my elbow. I did not touch it. Maddie did not raise hers either. She had picked it up. She had brought it to chest height. But she did not lift it all the way. She did not drink. She did not say the words. Then she set it back down. My mother did not notice Maddie's glass. She was looking at me. I shifted the briefcase from beside my left foot to the floor directly in front of me. The applause after the toast lasted 9 seconds. Conversation returned. My grandmother sat back down heavily. Mrs. Hardesty went to refill her coffee. Maddie picked Cody up from the carpet. My mother crossed the room and stopped in the kitchen doorway nearest my chair. She kept her voice low. "Don't!" I looked up. "Whatever you are thinking," she said. "Don't." "I'm not thinking," I said. "I already decided. You will not embarrass this family today." "I am not going to embarrass anyone." "Then what are you going to do?" "I'm going to talk to Haley." My mother's left hand went to her hip. Her right hand held a dish towel. It was the same kind of cotton dish towel my grandmother used to buy in 3-packs at Boscov's downtown. I had folded those dish towels thousands of times in that kitchen growing up. The fold was a Davis fold. Trifold, hem out. "She's 5, Teresa." "I know. You do not get to walk in here after 7 years and—" "Mom." She stopped. "I am not asking you for anything," I said. "I am not going to argue with you. I am going to put something in front of Haley, and then I am going to leave. After I am gone, you can do whatever you want." My mother said, "This is my house. It's Grandma's house." She did not answer that. She turned on her heel and went back into the kitchen. Through the archway, I watched her twist the dish towel between both hands, the same way she used to twist dough. I picked up the briefcase. I stood. Then I walked across the carpet toward Haley, who was still playing with the bay horse. I knelt on one knee. The room went quiet again. Mrs. Hardesty's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. Haley looked up at me with the horse in her left hand. She had her mother's eyes. She did not know who I was. I had left before she was born. "Hi, Haley," I said. "I'm your Aunt Teresa." Haley blinked. "Okay." I opened the briefcase on the carpet. Then I took out the taped MIT letter. I unfolded it carefully and laid it between us. The Browning tape was visible across the scholarship sentence. "This is from when I was 18, I said. "Grandma might tell you about it someday. If she doesn't, your mom will." Haley looked at the letter. She did not pick it up. If you ever want to go to school anywhere, college, trade school, any place that teaches you something you want to learn, this letter means someone said yes to me once. I touched the edge of the page. And someone will say yes to you too. You do not have to take my letter. You will get your own. From the kitchen doorway, my mother said, "Teresa, stop." I kept my eyes on Haley. Then I reached back into the briefcase and took out the cream-colored envelope. I stood and walked 4 steps to the coffee table, where my grandmother's cake plate sat. I placed the envelope on the table. "This is $250,000, I said. "It is in a trust. It is for any girl in this family who wants school." I paused. "Or any boy." I looked at Maddie. "Cody, too." Aunt Carol stood from her dining chair. "You cannot do this here." "I did it 3 weeks ago," I said. "I am only telling you now." My grandmother pushed herself up from the green armchair. The cane took her weight again. Her face had gone red. "Teresa Marie Davis," she said. "The eldest daughter stays." I stood fully now, but I did not look at my grandmother. I looked at my mother in the kitchen archway. My mother said, "This is not who we are." I answered in the exact way she had said it 7 years earlier. Same volume, same tempo, no performance. "Then I'm not who we are." The room went silent. 28 faces. Haley picked up the taped letter from the carpet. She held it at her shoulder and turned toward her mother. Maddie knelt beside her daughter. She took the letter gently from Haley's hand. Then she held it. She did not hand it back to me. I reached into the briefcase again and took out the photograph. Then I walked to the dining table and laid it face up beside the cake. My mother at 18. Nursing scrubs, Lehigh carbon brochure. That smile. I said nothing. My mother stepped into the dining room. She looked at the photograph. 4 seconds. Then she picked it up, turned it over, turned it back, set it down. Her voice changed. "Where did you—" I did not answer. "Where?" I waited. She turned toward the kitchen. "Frank, where did she—" "Frank." My father stood in the kitchen archway. He did not move. He still had the coffee cup in his hand. Then he set it on the counter behind him. He did not look at her. My mother turned back to me. Her voice rose. "You went through my things. Maddie sent the recipe box." "What?" "Maddie found the box in the attic. Maddie sent it to me. I read what was inside." Maddie was still on the carpet beside Haley. She did not stand. She did not deny it. She did not confirm it. She held the taped letter against her chest. My mother said, "You do not get to—" Her voice was louder now, louder than I had almost ever heard it. My grandmother sat back down heavily. Aunt Carol crossed herself. I picked up the briefcase. It was lighter now. The trust document was on the coffee table. The photograph was on the dining table. The taped letter was with Haley. The PhD letter and diploma were still inside the briefcase. They had never been the point. I walked to the door and put my hand on the knob. Then I turned back to my mother. I said one thing. "I taped mine too, Mom. Same brand of tape." Then I opened the door and walked out. The door closed behind me. From the porch, I could hear my mother's voice rising. It was a sound I had not heard from her before. I walked to the rental car. I did not look back. At 10:07 p.m., I was still sitting in the Honda. I put the key in the ignition. I did not turn it. The heat I had set to 68 had been off for 3 hours. The car was cold. Then someone knocked on the window. Maddie. She was holding the taped letter and the cream-colored envelope. Her coat was on now. Her breath showed in the air. I rolled the window down. "Haley wants to keep this," she said, holding up the letter. "She can." Maddie looked down at the envelope. "The trust," she said. "Is it real?" "Notarized. Sarah Klein, Boston. The numbers are on the cover sheet." "Tim is going to be difficult about it," Maddie said. "Tim does not have to sign anything," I said. "Haley is the beneficiary. You are the custodial parent. His name is not on the paperwork." She breathed out, and the air turned white between us. "What about Cody?" "Cody, too. Read page 3. She nodded. Then she held the letter and the envelope against her chest. "Are you coming back?" "I don't know yet." "Okay." She did not say anything else. She crossed the street, went back inside the house, and closed the door behind her. I turned the key. The engine started. The third call from my father came 3 months after the party, a Wednesday in February, 6:40 p.m. I was at my kitchen counter in Cambridge cutting onions when my phone vibrated. Pennsylvania area code. I picked up. Teresa. Dad. Haley just started a Saturday science program at Lehigh Carbon Community College, STEM camp for elementary kids. I stopped cutting. Maddie used the trust to register her, he said. The onions on the cutting board were only half diced. It's 6 Saturdays, he continued. 5 hours each. Maddie is driving her. What did Tim say? He said it was Maddie's money to spend. And Maddie? Maddie said it was Haley's. I looked down at the knife in my hand. Thank you for telling me. Your mother will not speak to me about it, he said. She knows? She knows. She just will not say it. Okay. There was a pause. Then he said, I should have called sooner. Teresa? 7 years sooner. Yes. A long silence settled between us. Then he said, Haley wants to write to you. Can Maddie send her your address? Yes. All right. He waited. I did not say anything else. Then he hung up. I went back to the onions. I finished dicing them. Then I sautéed them with garlic and olive oil, made pasta, and ate standing at the kitchen counter. Lehigh Carbon Community College, the same school that had sent my mother her letter in 1991, and now Haley was starting there at 5. The envelope from Pottsville arrived 3 weeks after my father's call. Pink paper. The address on the front was in Maddie's handwriting. The return address was in Haley's kindergarten handwriting, all caps. A backwards Y inside were 2 pieces of paper. The first was a letter from Haley. Crayon, pink and red. 6 lines. Dear Aunt Teresa, Mom said you went to MIT. I am drawing a building. The building has my name on it. I am 5. Love, Haley. The second page was the drawing. A red brick building. 3 stories. 6 windows. Across the top, in red crayon, she had written, Haley. Folded inside the drawing was the original taped MIT letter, the same one I had laid on the carpet in front of her. The tape was still browning. The folds were still soft. On the inside of the letter, on the back of the bottom third, Haley had stuck a yellow post-it note. The sentence was in adult handwriting, Maddie's handwriting, but the words were Haley's. I'm done with this one. I'll write my own. I put the drawing on the refrigerator. Then I put the letter back in the frame and hung it above my desk. The tape was still turning brown. The browning had reached the scholarship sentence, but the sentence was still legible. I learned something at my grandmother's 80th birthday that I should have learned the night my mother split my letter apart. The people who tell you who you are will keep telling you for as long as you let them. The only way to answer is to become someone else, quietly, without arguing, without asking permission, until one day they have to look at you and decide whether they are going to look away or finally look up. My mother is still deciding. That is my story. 1 letter pulled apart, 1 roll of Scotch tape, and 1 5-year-old girl drawing a brick building she has not built yet. If this story reminded you of a younger sister, a niece, a daughter, or any girl whose future is already being spoken for, take that as a sign. Open the option for her. Today, this week, in whatever way you can. And if you know a woman who once had to tape something back together, share this story with her. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.